Hello everybody and welcome to my virtual classroom. Now, to those of you who are preparing for the PTE examinations, how are you doing? And how is everybody doing? And how is your preparations going as well? Well, I really want to wish you all the best for the exams. Now, today I want to be sharing with you 7 tips. Yeah, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, 7. I can still count. Yeah. So I want to be sharing with you 7 tips that is going to help you to eradicate common mistakes that students make in the examination hall. So if you've got your pen and your paper to take down some notes, I've got my voice. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started with the tutorial. Now, oftentimes when people are preparing for exams, you tend to want to study hard, and yes, if you study hard, you would pass. But then there are some exams that no matter how hard you study, you still end up falling short of the marks that you need. And so why is this in particular? Because you are making errors or you actually don't know what the exam requires of you. So one major mistake that people make is they don't find out what an exam requires of them. They just study wide, study hard. This is the process that the exam goes, and they think if you go in there, you're just going to pass because you have studied hard. But yet, there are things that you need to be cognizant of when you are writing any exam. And this is why I'm bringing to you these 7 tips to help you. So, tip number 1, do not stay silent for more than 3 seconds. Now, tip number 1 is very, very crucial and vital. When you're in the exam hall and you're facing the computer and you're starting this exam, every time the computer prompts you to start, do not be quiet for more than 3 seconds. Because if you do that, the computer is going to submit it and you're going to lose a lot of marks. So if you hadn't spoken at all when the computer dinged its bell and you were doing the read aloud part, it's going to submit that question. The same goes for every other aspect of the speaking exam. All right, tip number 2, do not omit or add any word when you are doing this read aloud part of the exam. Now, in the read aloud part of the exam, you are actually given a paragraph text to read and you are meant to finish it in 40 seconds. Now, this text has an actual number count of the words in the database of the computer. So if you say more words, the computer is going to know that you are adding words to it and it's going to score you low, because if you are saying more words, it is making your sentence wrong. So you are losing points for the sentences because it marks you for content, which is the sentences that you're reading at. It marks you or rates your oral fluency and it rates your pronunciation. So you don't want anything to fault it. And also, if you are omitting words as well, you are going to be losing marks because of the fact that your sentences will not be correct. Got it? Good. Now, this leads me to the 3rd tip. Tip number 3. Do not repeat. Now, oftentimes when students are in the hall and they are doing their read aloud section, they often maybe omit words, like I said before, or they make a mistake and pronounce a word wrongly. Now, the biggest mistake that you could make is going backwards to try to rectify that mistake by repeating what you have already said before. So if you are repeating what you have already said before, guess what? You're adding a lot more words than the database count already has. So please, as much as possible, try not to repeat. If in any case you've omitted a word when you've started recording your voice, just continue reading, because that way you would lose less mark. In this exam, it is a game of acquiring as much marks as you can, and little things such as trying to correct yourself would actually make you lose marks. Okay, so tip number 4. Tip number 4 is one that a lot of people just overlook. My tip number 4 is give proper, adequate respect to your punctuation marks. Now, what are these punctuation marks? They are your period or dot or full stop, depending on which part of the world you're from. The full stop, that's what ends a sentence. Your commas, which is actually a punctuation mark that brings two sentences and makes them into one complex sentence. Two simple sentences and makes them into one complex sentence. You have other punctuation marks, like your exclamation marks. You've got your parentheses, you've got your question marks, and so on and so forth. But these two that I have mentioned, which are your period and comma, are the two most important punctuation marks that you are going to see in the Read Aloud section. They come on more often than any other punctuation mark. Now, what do you do when you see this? When you get the comma, give it a short pause and give a long pause to your full stop. What is a short pause and what is a long pause? Short pause is about 0.5 seconds. Now, you may think that is small, but it is not. It is just like, and you continue. You see how I did that there? Just a bit of a silence and then continue. And the computer will recognize that you have just indicated that there is a comma there. Now, for a full stop, try as much as possible to keep it under 2 seconds. Possibly 1 second is good enough. Don't make it beyond 2 seconds, because if it goes up to 3 seconds, the computer will submit your work and you don't want to lose that mark. So give proper respect to the punctuation marks and take cognizance of the commas and the full stops. You may get semicolons and colons every now and then. The same thing applies. So for a colon, give it a long pause. For a semicolon, give it a short pause. All right, to the next one. For the 5th tip, when you are given 30 or 40 seconds for this examination, before you actually read aloud for the second time, you are given 30 seconds or 40 seconds to actually read aloud for the first time. Now, at this point in time, you are not being recorded for the first time. It is only in the second time that you are being recorded. My advice to you is that you should read aloud and read aloud. So read aloud the first time and read aloud the second time. Why should you read aloud the first time if you are not being recorded? Well, it is simple. Whenever you are reading, when you read in your mind, you always find out that you read every word correctly. But you haven't tested your tongue yet. And you haven't tested, your pronunciation yet when you are not reading them aloud. So reading them aloud helps you to find out which of these words are difficult to pronounce the first time. It registers in your brain. And so when you are reading aloud properly the second time for the recording, you would actually correct yourself automatically when you get to that word. Also, some of the words that you would omit or you would have omitted the first time, it will also register in your brain that, oh, I missed that word when I was reading it aloud. So the second time, you would actually not omit it. So reading aloud the first time actually helps you to cover all the basics before you read aloud properly for the recording. All right, let me not dwell too much on that. The next point, which is my 6th point here, is a no-brainer. Try to finish in less than 40 seconds. Now, my ideal range of time would be between 28 seconds to 35 seconds. Why did I pick this ideal time? Because of oral fluency especially. That's one reason. Now, what are the oral fluency? I explained it in my last video. You can check that out if you go onto my YouTube page, and you will see my previous video. I don't know how to, put up the scorecards yet, but I will find out how to do that in later videos. So, anyways, for oral fluency purposes, that is the reason why you have to actually finish within this range of time. Now, if you finish earlier than 28 seconds, you may be all right. But if you start finishing your text in 24 seconds or so, you're probably talking too fast. And if you're talking too fast, then the computer is going to take one word and another word, merge them together as one, and say you have pronounced those words incorrectly. Now, what that penultimately does is it actually tells the computer that the sentence you just read, you read it wrongly. So you will be losing marks for content once again. So you need to be able to read at a perfect pace that keeps you within this range of 28 to 35 seconds. Now, on the flip side, which is on the other side, why did I pick 35 seconds when you have a whole 40 seconds to read? Because you need a safety net to land on. So if you read at a proper pace and you were targeting finishing at 35 seconds, if you did not finish at 35 seconds, odds are you would finish on 36 or 38 or 39 seconds because you were targeting 35 seconds. But if you target 40 seconds and you read so slowly, you probably read too slowly that the computer would also fail you for oral fluency, and there's a possibility that you might not finish and the computer will submit your question and you would have lost huge chunks of marks. So, like I said, this is a game of collecting marks and not losing them. So these tips are to help you not to lose them. Finally, my tip would also be my final tip. Number 7 would actually be for you to try to change your stress when you are reading out those texts. Try to find out how the stresses are actually made when you are speaking in the English language, because that would help you when you are doing the read aloud. Now, if you just go and you are reading out loud like a text and you're just reading it plain, like, so Ali is a boy, Simbi is a girl, and so on and so forth, you will probably not get proper marks for oral fluency because you're not stressing certain words. Now, it is hard to know which words to stress, but if you can actually try to watch a lot of news, as I've said in my previous video, and watch a lot of English-based movies, you will be able to imitate. So my tip to you is try to imitate as many of these British, American, or maybe Canadian actors, or proper English speaking actors, even Australian actors, doesn't matter, as long as they're proper English speaking. So look for those genres of movies as well that would actually help you in that section so that you can actually improve yourself. Now, if you watch gangster movies, I love gangster movies as much as the next person. Now, if you watch gangster movies, you find out that slangs are so dominant in those movies. And those movies, because those slangs are dominant, they will affect your, grammar. And you don't want that to be affected. Also, they would affect your oral fluency again, because sometimes most of these people talk really fast. Gangster movie, mafia movies, and so on and so forth. But if you try to stick to genres that are very inclusive of maybe politics and maybe documentaries or dramas and things like that, the English that they try to speak, or they speak, or the English that is spoken in those genres of programs, movies, and what have you, are actually good English, and they would help your stresses. So keep cognizance and keep in mind how you stress the words for your read aloud. And actually, this applies to the entire speaking examination. Well, so there you have it, the 6 tips and 1 advice that can actually help you to gather up better marks and take you from your good marks to excellent marks, which is what I have always wanted for you. Anyways, guys, that is the video. Thank you guys for holding out and watching up to this point in time. If you like the video, please smash that like button. And if you want to get more videos like this, remember to click on the subscribe buttons. And also, if you've got your own tips or you got questions for me, just try and leave them in the comment section below, and I will definitely relate it to others as well. So thank you once again for watching, and until the next video, remember to keep studying, stay blessed, and always in everything that you do, be terrific.